this edition of Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Today, join me and special guests Romey Swanson and Bryan Calk as we dive into the time-honored question, the good birders don't wear white. Does it really matter? Watch this episode for this February Cup Chat Showdown. Enjoy! So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service with Bryan Calk, y'all all know, part of our wonderful extension team, and joining us again, and one of our professional guides for Birding the Border 2021 is Romey Swanson up above me. So, thanks everyone for joining, and Bryan and Romey, it's going to be so fun to have y'all on. Not only today are we going to be doing our February Showdown, but we are also going to be diving. We've got several other things to talk about because, truthfully, Romey, you can talk a lot, and Bryan, we can share a lot too. So, I mean, it's going to be a good, interesting Cup Chat today. So, first of all, one thing I want to remind everyone is that Birding the Border registration is open. Romey and Bryan are both professional guides for us, and we're so excited about being able to host that coming up in April. So if you have any questions, let us know. Also, if you're joining us today, make sure you comment where you are joining us from. And I am watching the comments, so if you have any questions, let us know as well. So let's first talk about something that I think is near and dear to both of your hearts, and a new Birding with Extension program, the Rio Diablo Birding Camp. So it's a youth camp for advanced young birders. I know both of y'all feel very strongly. Bryan, this was your dream and your passion to create this, and Romey, you have been super supportive. And let's talk a little bit about why. I'm going to give this question to Romey first before we start our showdown. Romey, why do you think, being a part of Audubon, Texas, why do you think that this is such a great thing as we introduce this young birders camp into Texas? And why are you so excited about it?
Well, let me first just say this. This is a wonderful program, and I'm so excited to play a small part in this brainchild of Bryan's and yours, Emily. And I think to answer your question, that the more work that we do to bring folks at an early age into the natural world, you know, we know that there's so many therapeutic benefits of just having nature contact. So that's like, let's put that number one, but being able to learn about the ecosystem with which birds rely on, and, you know, humans too, and to be able to tell that story, to connect them from wherever they are, whatever, you know, these sort of place-based ideas, wherever they are, but bringing them out to where a lot of these wonderful benefits are achieved, whether it's ecosystem services, we talked about that in the past, but also the recreation, the communities that are tied to these spots and that rally around their natural environment and the assets that they have there. So I think there's so many different benefits. Just depends on how you approach any topic any given day or any given hour, and that these young bright people will be exposed to all sorts of awesome conversations and find a community amongst their own peer group that they can have deeper conversations with even after this event.
Well, and that makes a great point, Bryan, or Romey, and that's one of the reasons Bryan really feels so strongly about that. And Bryan, maybe, we've shared your story before on Cup Chat, but I think that social aspect is such an important piece of it. As you spoke about when you were a young birder, you didn't necessarily know that there were tons of other young birders like you. And finding and meeting some of those birders at a younger age, I can only imagine from a very new person into the birding world and industry, it's a very tight-knit group. And if you can find those connections and make those connections at a young age, the opportunities in this industry are endless. So I think that's a really great point. So Bryan, how are we, registration, kind of give us the 411 on what kiddos need to do or parents need to do if their kids are interested in coming to Rio Diablo Birding Camp.
Sure. So we have a maximum of participants, and currently we have 4 of those spots taken. So there are only 8 spots remaining, and you can register up to May of 2021. So if you are still on the fence and sort of thinking about whether you'd like to come or not, you still got some time, but once we fill those 12 slots, that's going to be it. If you're looking for more information, you can go to wildlife.tamu.edu and find the links to information about RDBC and all of our other programs too. And you'll find the application form there that you can fill out and send in right away.
Right. So I just am so excited about the program. I think it's awesome to take Bryan's brainchild and Bryan's idea and help him make his dream come to reality. And I've been so excited with your support, Romey, of starting this new birding camp here in Texas. I think it's going to be a great thing for many years to come for many youth. And we're trying to make it as affordable as possible. So that brings me into my next segue. I know we got to actually get to discussing what we're here to discuss, but that brings me into my next segue. We are going to be hosting a virtual birding seminar coming up February 28th of this month and it's called Getting Started Sketching. And Romey, I don't know this about you. Do you draw?
I did when I was young. I'm very much out of the habit, but I'm intrigued by the opportunity.
So Marky, Bryan, help me with her last name. I just always call her Marky. Muchler. She is going to be doing she's a great artist. She's going to be giving everyone some intro beginning trips to sketch birds. And then Bryan is going to talk about how even if you are artistically challenged like moi, how sketching, you too, Romey, how sketching can really benefit you as a birder. So it's kind of a 2-part kind of thing, because even if you aren't really artistic or don't want to be a great artiste, it also can really benefit your birding skills. And so Bryan's going to talk a little bit about that. And the registration cost is $15, and the proceeds from that program go to benefit Rio Diablo Birding Camp. So you get a great program out of it, plus you get to support our great cause. So go online and check out that program. So now, without further ado, let's discuss this. And Romey and I have had this conversation before we even got on. What is even the real saying? Do good birders wear white, or do good birders don't wear white? This is I have lots of opinions, but I'm not part of the showdown. I am just the mediator. So the true saying is good birders do not wear white. Now,
Correct.
True or false? Is it true or false, Romey?
It's absolutely true.
Bryan, false or true?
I believe that is a false statement.
There's a book about it, Bryan. Romey, bring out the book.
I'm just going to go ahead and make my opening case right now with my side has an actual book written about it called Good Birders Don't Wear White by Peter Dunn here. And I scoured Amazon and all of the bookstores and couldn't find any books written about why birders would wear white.
Bryan?
Okay.
Well, you were prepared for that, huh?
I believe if you read the book, it actually that's sort of a misconception, and actually it doesn't really matter what you wear.
So let me ask this question before we get to birding and the white. Let's talk about going hunting. Do you wear camo, Romey, to go hunting?
Man, we're going to go on a little rabbit hole here. I hunt in Central Texas, where we are overpopulated with deer, and a lot of times, I'm going to admit, I will pop out into the pasture with flip flops and a tank top on. However, I would say that if I went hunting in West Texas, I would absolutely wear camo.
Bryan, would you wear camo hunting? Because I feel like these topics are highly related.
I can see the relation there. And when I've gone in the past, I have not worn camo, but I have definitely worn muted colors. And I think it just kind of depends on your strategy that you're going for.
So I absolutely hate camo. I find it highly untasteful looking, and this is truly just a fashion issue for me. I know this isn't going to bother y'all much, but it's truly a fashion issue. I do now own one camo shirt and a really cute pair of camo shoes, but I do not wear it at all close to nature. I would not ever close to think about wearing it while hunting. Just, I don't know. It's a mental block for me. So my question is, why would we not wear camo birding versus wearing white?
It's a good question, Emily, and we'll make a couple of caveats here. So absolutely, waterfowl hunters are big camo utilizers, right? So, but perhaps the difference there is that you have a consumptive use versus a passive use of the resource of the birds. So they're obviously trying to hunt.
Do you think the birds know if you show up in camo, you're there to pow pow, and if you show up in white or other colors, they know you're not there for hunting purposes? The ducks know that?
Well, I think that I would say that they perhaps don't process that question, but they know. So waterfowl know that they are on the menu, But northern cardinals, perhaps they know that they're not necessarily on the menu, and perhaps they give us a little more grace than waterfowl do.
True, I could get that. So, why do you think the color white is of an importance? Like, good birders don't, like if you're going to go in a pen of bulls, you don't wear red, supposedly. So why do you think white is the color? Why isn't it good birders don't wear red?
Well, Bryan, I'll take this one and I'll refer back to the book that has a chapter on it, a chapter by Sherry Williamson here. She shares a story where back in the 90s, they were chasing a rare bird that was at that time called the eared trogon, and I think it's called the eared quetzal now. So what happened was this attracted a lot of birders to this area. This was a bird that this pair of birds were trying to nest, and generally were very secretive and retiring on approach by any birders, but then finally settled in and the nest was found and people were able to observe this bird. But one particular day, the male coming to the nest cavity with a little caterpillar in its mouth just would not go in and feed its chicks. it was freaking out, and the observers were seeing that it was pointing at one individual kind of set aside from the rest of the birders. That one individual was wearing a white shirt in contrast to everyone else. And so this observer, Sherry, walks down to this one particular bird wearing the white shirt, asks him to cover it up, put on a different hat. And within moments, the bird calms down, goes into the nest cavity, feeds its chick, and the day went on quite normally. So we have one data point, a chapter in a book, and that's where our big argument's coming from. I seriously couldn't find a whole lot of other support for why birders wouldn't wear white, but I have a book, I've got a chapter, and I've got an N=1 experience that supports that argument.
So Bryan, if good birders don't wear white, what if good birders can wear white and it doesn't matter? So you think going out birding wearing white is kosher?
I mean, I've done it many, many times with success. I think, Romey makes a good point. It depends on sort of the situation and what you're hoping to see and how sensitive that species might be. So, he made a great point with the waterfowl. If they're, particularly jumpy, they're used to being hunted. You probably don't want to just try to walk up on them in a white shirt. They're probably going to see you and fly off. But, if I'm just going for a walk in the local park where everyone walks their dogs anyway, the birds are, accustomed to people wearing all sorts of things. So it probably really doesn't matter what color shirt I wear.
Oh my God. All I could think then was people jogging in the park, maybe not wearing the most attractive outfits, so the birds were used to seeing whatever. Okay. Sorry. Because we all know that. Anyways, yep. Keep going.
Well, I will go ahead. I'm sorry, Bryan, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna, sort of say that I think too, sort of, even if the birds, depending on what you're wearing or how you're acting, you kind of get more of a connection with the birds. You're seeing how they're reacting to you, and maybe you can adjust the way you're approaching nature, stepping more quietly, being more observant, giving the birds that sort of space, instead of trying to deck yourself out in camo and just get maybe closer to the birds than you should be in the first place.
I'm wearing camo on the next spring. We go on. Bryan, be prepared.
I will say I've worked with birders that have decked themselves out with full camo regala, and even their cameras are wrapped in camo wrappings. And I feel like at the end of the day, we're seeing mostly the same birds, even when I'm out there in my bright pink shirt or whatever.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic. I mean, we talk about in every industry and every kind of anything you do, there is kind of a official dress. I mean, we have business casual, we have casual, and what you're supposed to wear. I mean, I guess basically we have not really had a showdown. We've just kind of decided that there's really nothing that you are supposed to wear or not supposed to wear to go birding, because you bird in flip-flops, Romey. But that's because you would, and I'm like, and here we are. Romey, you are going to kill our snake gator rental because you're saying it's okay to go birding in flip-flops for birding the border. Gosh, on Friday.
No, don't do it. It's okay for me. Do as I say, not as I do.
But I mean, I think it's interesting to think about. It would be very interesting to do a legit kind of study or something to see how birds do react to different colors. We've done a study like that on sheep, and if they like different color water buckets to drink out of. A kid did that for an ag science fair project that I knew. But I think it would be interesting to kind of see how they reacted. But I mean, can they even see the colors? Are they colorblind?
Well,
Well, you would think
I've got a personal experience where on several occasions I've had hummingbirds come up to me and, hover around me when I'm wearing a hat that has some bright red in it, looking for that flower. So some species certainly are triggering on specific colors, whether they're attracting or maybe perhaps scared. I'm sure Bryan's had, similar experiences too.
Thoughts on colors, Bryan?
Yeah, so the more we learn about birds, the more we're realizing that they probably see even a broader spectrum of colors than we do. So they're certainly, tuned into that. And I think it can, white is supposed to be the most contrasting, stark possible color choice, based on the background. If you're birding is typically, greens and browns and things like that. So white, can stick out pretty significantly. But again, I think, you can still achieve a similar outcome as wearing camo if you just move very consciously wherever you're going.
I think that's a great point. And half the time when we go out birding, we don't flush birds. When we go out and we walk, very rarely, unless there's a bird really close or something like that, we're not flushing a bunch of birds and making them leave. We're just truly just strolling along and enjoying I love our walks at the duck pond, Bryan. Those are probably my favorite. So anyways, segue there, but I think that's interesting. So if you had to pick a favorite birding shirt, what color is it? What is your lucky birding shirt? What color is it? Do you have a lucky birding shirt? I have lucky shirts. I'm very superstitious.
I can't say I have a lucky shirt, but I typically would wear gray or greens or, sort of muted, solid colors.
Muted, solid. Romey, do you have a lucky shirt?
I'm kind of there with Bryan. I've got an assortment of those Columbia long sleeve breathable shirts, and they vary from bright blues and whites to muted earth tones, and it doesn't matter really to me which color I'm grabbing as long as I have one of those shirts, because you're usually hiking. It sometimes is an intense heat day, and good coverage from the sun.
Well, I will tell y'all, I have a present for y'all when y'all come to Birding the Border. Bryan knows about them. You don't.
I love presents.
We will be following the rules at Birding the Border of good birders don't wear white. Because I tried to buy y'all white shirts and Bryan told me I couldn't. So I have very lovely Birding the Border guide shirts for y'all. But they are maroon, navy, and tan. So we will test the theory of, does it matter? We're going to give you all three. We should have done white and seen if on the day the guides were white, we saw less birds. We could have made it a scientific study, Bryan, but you would not let me buy white shirts.
Change.
Wow, pin that on me. Okay.
You did. I wanted white shirts because I thought it would be so pretty with the logo being maroon. I should have gotten y'all camo shirts.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Just kidding. No camo. No, none for me. Anyways, everybody's got to laugh a little bit because I just have this, it's a mental block, I think. I just can't get over, and it's not that I think it looks ugly, it's just, I can't get over it. It's not even a color, it's a pattern. And we shorten it to camo, not even camouflage. Maybe I need to start saying it with like a British accent and make it a little more camouflage. And maybe I'll think about wearing it. So, anyways. Well, let's, I know we're just kind of piddling. We're bad on showdowns. Maureen's going to fire us, Bryan, from doing stuff. Guys, we're going to get fired. Hopefully she's not one of the 6 people watching. But if you are one of the 6 people watching, make sure you to comment and let us know where you're joining us from. So I'm gonna let y'all go off on a whole nother pathway, because one thing I do want to highlight is that our guides are very well-rounded individuals and naturists. And I'm going to limit y'all to a few minutes on this topic. But, Bryan, did you see Romey's Facebook post yesterday where he is working on a herp big year.
Oh, I have seen that. Yeah.
So, Romey, why don't you give us an update? And I'm going to back way out of this one. And Bryan, you are on as host because I have no clue. I'm not a herper. I'm glad you'll love it. But you can ask a couple questions if you want, or y'all can discuss. But I thought that was super interesting. And so if you are a herper or you like birds and herps, might want to think about going out with Romey or Bryan on Birding the Border. Now, Romey, you do know as you come to Birding the Border, you are going to have to find the birds, not the herps.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, but we'll do a good job of finding birds.
So tell us a little bit about your herp big year. Just maybe maybe it would inspire someone.
Sure, I'll keep it as brief as I can. But it's my 2021 passion project. It's helping me kind of relaunch into multiple things that I enjoy doing, which are taking photographs and writing about summaries of trips and things. And I'm pursuing as much reptile and amphibian diversity within Texas as I can during 2021. The update I provided yesterday that you saw, Emily, was just an overview of a very brief overview of what January looked like. And surprisingly, you'd think that reptiles and amphibians, being considered cold-blooded animals, that they would largely be unavailable to be observed during the winter. However, I closed the January out with 24 species. Lots of salamanders in East Texas, and I think that it's incredible. Just like the birds in the big thicket, particularly the warblers, the amount of breeding diversity in the big thicket of East Texas, there's a parallel in salamander diversity out there. So it was really cool to go visit some of those sites and see some of these species that are actually most active during the winter. Many salamanders are breeding exclusively during the rather relatively warmer rainfall events of the winter. So I'm learning a lot. I'm meeting some incredible people, getting exposed to some sites and some places I've never seen before. And, always thinking in the back of my mind while I'm looking down for reptiles and amphibians, what are the possibilities of the birds around these sites? And so I'll continue the venture. I've done something similar to this in the past. In 2017, I pursued a big year for birding and herping, in Texas, where I observed about a little over 400 species of birds and a little over 100 species of herps, reptiles, and amphibians. I'm hoping this year to go over 125, maybe closer to 140 on the reptiles and amphibians, which is a surprising number. Texas is truly blessed. Over 500, 600 species of birds observed in the state throughout the history, and well over 200 species of reptiles and amphibians within the state.
That's so true. And thinking about diversity and seeing places in different places, I had a question while I was driving the other day, Bryan or Romey, one of you. Have we seen, have we had a golden cheek in Val Verde County? Yes.
Bryan, you probably know better than I do. We don't see them at the sites that we are going to during the Birding the Border event, but there are some observations in the easternmost portions of the county adjacent to Edwards County.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I just had that thought when I was driving. We were driving up to I was driving the road that goes from Del Rio to Sonora, and I just thought about that, because we had seen the black caps over at McKenna. And so I was just like, I don't know that. And of course, at that point, there's no self-service to look that up. And then by the time I've gotten to here, I had forgotten about it. So I just asked y'all because it's so much faster to ask y'all because y'all know it all. So your herp story has to be really, that's going to be so fun for you to do. But it reminds me of the time Bryan and I, and how much Bryan loves herps, and I do not. We were headed back to the Devil's River after Learn to Bird to scout. Oh, Bryan, come back. This is a good story. Okay, there you are. We were going to Birding the Border. We were going after Learn to Bird to scout at Devil's River for Birding the Border. And we were driving, and what snake did we see?
We saw a big bull.
Oh my God. And he wants to get close to it. And he's like, it's fine. It's just acting like a rattlesnake. It's really not. I'll be fine. And oh my gosh, he was so close that it was, I mean, and he probably was like maintaining safe distances, but you know, for me, I was still in the car and I was too close. And just that was a fun moment. I really would like you to delete the video though of me screaming in the background, warning you to be safe and be careful and that you were going to die. Because it is quite a bit embarrassing. You still have that, don't you?
I treasure it. Yep, it's one of my most prized possessions.
Please don't use that against me. I will make that you have the correct shirts at Burning the Border. Whatever you want, I'll give you. So, well, let's wrap up this interesting showdown. Maureen's gonna fire us because we didn't really show it down on the birders wearing white, but I think we came to a really good conclusion that nobody here feels like we have to wear white to bird. Or Romey, do you really feel like you can't wear white?
Well, I'll wrap it up with a closing statement. How about that?
You give us a closing statement, Romey.
Yeah, I came here ready to argue.
I know.
So maybe Maureen will like this, but I like how we related it back to hunting, and in the world of hunting, there's a whole code of ethics, and it's very individualized. There's a whole moral system, and what my favorite hunters talk about are how they are participants within a natural system. That they are, that perhaps the reason they're wearing their camouflage is so that they can not only harvest an animal, increase their success in harvesting an animal, but that they can also observe animals and wildlife that don't know that they're present. So they're seeing them in a very natural state behaviorally. And I would take that and say that birders are also perhaps not participants in that same system, but we're certainly observers. And to see and to participate in the bird life without them feeling us or noting us, or us changing their behavior, is something worth exploring. And if that means a little tweak or adjustment in what we're wearing to see a more pure behavior, that's something we should certainly take in full consideration in this argument. I think a lot of times we get on the trail and we're just so bullheaded about trying to see the maximum number of birds, and we're being sometimes rather disruptive with our pitching and all of these other things, perhaps our clothes too. And maybe a nice change of pace is to try to blend in as best we can and to see these birds in their natural elements behaving rather naturally.
That's a really good point as to why we might not wear white.
Maybe sometimes.
And maybe that's not. And maybe you make that great point, Bryan. Do you have I'll let you have do you have a closing argument, Bryan?
I can come up with a closing statement anyway. I would, agree with a lot of Romey's sentiment, and, creating that sort of deeper nature connection is really valuable. And, considering what you're wearing is certainly an important part to that. Something that we didn't really talk about yet, but just considering, what sort of clothing you're going to wear. The one thing I tend to tell people is avoid noisy fabrics, that are swishing every time you take a step, or, stuff like that. The birds are sensing that sound and it makes it hard to hear. So I think, definitely consider your clothes. But at the same time, if I'm in South Texas in July and I'm going to be out hiking in the sun all day, I might choose a white shirt just out of, comfort to keep me cooler. So, don't let your clothing selection, keep you from going out in nature either. Sort of keep yourself comfortable, but do keep, your disturbance and effect on the birds in mind too.
Thank you,
Bryan, I don't care what color shirt you're wearing. You're one of the best birders I know. And folks are very lucky to have you as a guide.
Aw, love that. Say that again, Bryan. We didn't hear you.
Oh, I was just saying that was very sweet of Romey to say.
Well, it's
It
true.
was. Well, and I think that's the fun thing. I've just enjoyed getting to know you both over our course of Birding with Extension. And I think my favorite, one thing that was super fun was when we had both of you on one trip at birding the hills.
Yeah.
And we went out to the Hershey Ranch with Romey, and we got to bird with both of you and talk about a guide team that's wonderful. I hate to tell everybody at Birding the Birder, you aren't going to get the same experience because both of you have individual trips, but you are both leading the Fort Clark Springs trip. One of you on Friday and one of you on Sunday. And I will tell y'all, y'all have a few extra spots open, and y'all really, to me, that's one of the most under-registered trip of them all.
Really?
Because the birding at Fort Clark, A, is so great. B, we have two great guides. And then C, Bryan grew up there and knows all the tricks that you're not going to know, Romey. And he's looking for that to be the biggest trip of the program. So he said, what did you say the other day? You're going to bird it hard and heavy, and you're going to get top numbers. That's Bryan's goal. Just in case you wanted to know, Romey, he's out to kick your butt.
Probably will.
He does know the secrets. It's kind of a disadvantage, but
I'll do my best.
maybe he'll tell you a few secrets if you're nice.
I want a few. Don't give me them all, but I'll take whatever you give me, Bryan.
Okay, I'm happy to give you some pointers.
But anyway, so it's going to be a great weekend in April when y'all are actually both of us in person. That'll be fun. I loved y'all's closing arguments. I loved our showdown. Maureen may be a bit disappointed in us, but we had fun this morning. So anyways, if anyone has any questions, please let us know where you're joining us from or comment. And I think that's all I've got, guys. Y'all got anything to add?
Register.
We're birding the border for Romey's trip. Romey, you're guiding at Zuberbuehler Ranch, and that trip only has one spot left. Yeah. You're guiding at Devils.
Yeah.
Devils River on Saturday. No. Devils River on Friday, maybe.
That sounds right.
And then you are guiding at Fort Clark Springs on Sunday. So Romey has 3 great trips. Definitely want to sign up, especially if you are also into herps. Romey definitely probably will stop for a herp or two. And Bryan, you're guiding Fort Clark Springs, Baker's Crossing, which that only has one spot left. And there may be a surprise attached with Baker's Crossing. Bryan, not even going to tell you the surprise, but maybe a surprise there for the birders who go out on that trip. And then you're guiding Devils River on Sunday, and that one is full. So those are it. And we've also, just FYI guys, anyone else who's listening, we have brought our trip capacity back to 10 for all of our regular trips, and then still 8 for our photography focus trips. We're bringing those numbers down a little bit, partly due to group size and keeping our numbers in a safe place for COVID-19 guidelines and restrictions. So we're bringing those numbers back. Now, if there was a massive change, there may be a possibility that we open up some of those extra spots as April gets closer, but I don't anticipate doing that. So trip numbers are going to be reduced even to the point of 10 and even less than that if we need to. So everybody go register. We're excited to see you. I don't know anything else. Bryan, what trip are you most excited about for Birding the Border?
That's a good question. Baker's Crossing now, because there's a fun surprise attached. So
no, I said maybe a fun surprise. Maybe. Working on a fun surprise.
You make things happen.
I do typically. So, Romey, what trip are you most excited about for your crew?
They're all amazing. So, I'm going to pick one, but really, like, we're talking about picking out of a series of all 9s and 10s and 11s, on a 10-point scale. But the Zuberbuehler ranch.
People dealer?
Yeah, it's I got to hear the story last year, or during one of our conferences, and to be able to access an otherwise inaccessible site is an incredible benefit of this Birding the Border festival. So
Y'all will be the second, like Bryan and I have, and we've gone on some birding scouting trips, so we've never really birded heavy. Like we've scouted and we call that fast birding sometimes because we have to take Bryan lots of places. But so y'all will be the Bill Sane and the beginner group will bird it Friday. So you will be the official second group of birders ever to access that property. So we are super excited of how many species y'all can get when you're not fast birding, and really spending some time there. So we'll be super excited. So anyways, everyone have a great Wednesday. Romey, you have a great Wednesday, and Bryan, have a wonderful Wednesday. And everybody who's joined us today, thanks for joining us. We will see you at Birding the Border if you're coming. And I guess we're not going to wear white unless we need to.
Or maybe we will. I don't know.
Who knows? Why not? Personal preference. I'm not going to wear camo, but you guys can. So anyway, thank y'all for joining me today, and we'll see you in April. Bye, guys. Everybody have a great Wednesday.